Yeah, really interesting set of icebreakers. We'll sort of leave it to be found out, but it's a big set of icebreakers, and it's stuff that we've been seeing Kate sort of do, is that you include a lot of different icebreakers to answer a lot of these different threats.
Right.
Do you think that slows Kate down at all?
I mean, I think that it slows her down just because of some of the things that she includes, not the random one-offs, right? Shaper's always done this random one-off thing. They did it out of Exile with the dumpster gamble decks. They did it, they've done it for ages. But I think some of the things that they're including as these problem solver cards are becoming less and less necessary.
Right.
Where like you see a lot of these Shaper decks with these Deus Ex and these sharpshooters and with these things that were great at some point, but are kind of less necessary now with the economy that we have. Sharpshooter might be fine, but like here, Jinteki, PE, and any kind of like kill Jintekis outside of RP are not things. So I almost feel like Deus Ex is a card slot that could be better used somewhere else.
It's reasonable. Well, let's see how Ross plays. He's gonna hedge fund into ice, into more ice. So
pretty
good
good
up
opening.
with 10 credits. Yeah. Kevin, we'll see how he can sort of magic his way back in or not to the top 8. Pretty solid start. Any starting hand as a runner with sure gamble, you got to be pretty happy about. It's going to depend on his
and
hardware.
A clone chip, not bad.
Draws. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So just money for days.
All we need is a PPVP or a SMC. Apparently there's a fly.
Dealing with a fly on screen. So.
And is he just taking a credit for his last click as well? 2 sure gambles not enough for you, Kevin? Alright, Ross back down. Puts an ice. Goes ahead and is trying to push something through. I think that may have been an Adonis he played.
Yeah, and Kevin just gonna quality time. That's again, pretty good start here. He managed to get a lot of money out. He's gonna be able to play whatever cards he draws, really.
The only downside is you have to run your hand empty, right? You gotta refill it. But you got the money to do it, so.
Yep.
Looking for probably any kind of voice pad.
There, yeah. Also drew an early levy, not ideal, but pretty happy to drop that in the bin against ETF. Probably not too worried about seeing things like blacklists.
Oh no, I've been seeing a lot of it lately in all the factions. And what did he find he wants to play? Another short gamble. So he has money, but not really making any runs here. I mean, what's he afraid of getting hit with out of HB? HB is the one faction that I am fully confident in face checking on the regular, at least on click 1. Maybe not 3, 4.
And plays a Deus Ex. And see, this is one of those things. I think Kevin draws all those cards, and he's really sitting there for a little while trying to think about what he wants to do. And I'd love to know the sort of the rationale here.
I mean, does he have
I don't know what
ace ops in here?
Yeah, I don't know what sort of AP ice he's worried about seeing. That's the only thing I can think of. Well, I mean, you got to be sure that ETF's not going to be net damaging you, right?
Right.
Unless he's afraid of the 1 or 2 of snares, but that's a lot of influence. That being said, we know Ross is running 2 Caprices, right? So that's a lot of his influence right there. We'll see if Kevin is ready for those, for instance.
Yeah, like I'm really wanting him to put some pressure on Ross here. He has 4 pieces of face down ice, and you have to assume some of those are Bioroids. You don't have to be too afraid of face checking them. And even before he played the DSX, he didn't even have any programs from the trash. Like, I'm not sure why Kevin is going so light. Ross draws into an NAPD and into a second Architect. Four-piece ice, trying to figure out where it's going to go. I think this is probably going to go over HQ here. Now he's going to make a whole new server.
Yeah, we're getting some round updates, but yeah, it's interesting that you mention feel pretty confident face checking into a lot of HBIs, and of course the one that he runs into as Architect is a little unfortunate. But you know, at the very least, we saw the top of Ross's deck is essentially all ice, so this game going to be a little more drawn out than the first.
And I'm not sure how's Ross's deck built. I mean, is he going for that long game? I mean, he's got some bigger ice in here. I don't know that it's
interesting to note, he's got an ABT in hand. He knows the top 4 cards of his deck.
That's fair.
If you know it's iced, you try and get that ABT scored. And
yeah, probably. I mean, he has an APD coming up, so he's going to wait until that bypasses. But then, yeah, the next few pieces.
So maybe we'll see. Interesting. No, he draws into the toll booth, I guess. Okay, puts it out in front of what we can presume is going to be his scoring server.
Yeah, at this point with an Architect and a toll booth.
I'm a little surprised he doesn't just sort of drop the Caprice and the ABT and sort of go for it. I mean, you can't be worried about the Icebreaker showing up. Like, that's going to happen eventually anyways, and right now you don't see him, so now's as good a time as any to sort of go for it.
Right, and you even get that added benefit of, he goes through the Architect, he lets him install these cards, Caprice keeps you out, he runs back again, that's more cards you get to install.
Right.
So.
And potentially more ice he has to run through if you decide that's where you want to go with your installs. So there's the lady, still not helping him on that scoring server. Come on, Ross, don't be a coward.
I mean, but this is not NEH. You don't have to sweat every single agenda they get. I mean, at least with NEH, you know that first agenda could be an Astro script, and now suddenly you're way behind for the rest of the time. You have a little more wiggle room here.
So, just real quick to give you a sort of update on the bubble. Stephen Cantrell, 10th place, playing against 3rd place John Hartman. John Hartman essentially in. Stephen Cantrell gets a runner win in the first game, so really shoring up his case for making it in. Same with Chris Linton, who's actually just outside the bubble, I think. Or no, he's in at number 6. He just took a game off Hollis.
Meanwhile, Zachary Cavis keeping up his dominance today. He has come into Atlanta
still undefeated,
running roughshod over us.
Yeah.
Which is sad because for as much time as Atlanta spends outside of their meta, showing things up. Last year regional, we had Jesse come down, took it. This year we have Zach coming in, running the tables. I'm gonna need Atlanta to do a little better on his home turf.
And in the meantime, Kevin manages to swoop in and grab an NAPD off of Ross. Not the end of the world, making him pay for it. He's down to 8 credits. So Ross can't feel too bad about that. It's much better than the ABT getting grabbed.
Oh yeah.
So. Real quick, and right at the edge of the bubble, Clay Weeks at 9 actually splits with Tanner Lang. Not sure I'm getting that right. And so Tanner was in 7th. That split, that could help people out like Ahmed and Pacer. If they sweep their rounds, leapfrog both of these guys and get to the top 8. So we'll see what happens for that. It's a quick corp split for those two.
And if Ben records these videos, puts them back up on YouTube later, we're sorry. People listen to this commentary. But, things need to be said.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I guess, in retrospect. Whoops.
Right, if you watch these out of order.
Then, yeah, you're in trouble. Sorry.
Should have done that in the first place.
You should have been watching live on Twitch with all these great people in chat. Keep those questions coming, keep those comments coming. I'm reading them, even if I'm not responding to them. Ben's over here typing away furiously, giving you guys the attention you deserve. Meanwhile, Ross gets that scoring server installed.
Dirty Laundries and HU pulls the other Architect, so it's still in Hansonware.
So now at this point, Ross is about to score that ABT. Does he fire it?
You don't fire it. You have 7 pieces of ice on the board. You have 3 pieces of ice in your hand. You're looking at maybe 8 more in the deck, 10 more in the deck.
I think you fire it. I think
you don't have a Jackson to get it back, though.
I mean, look, if you're a coward, you don't fire it.
Okay, well, I'm a coward.
I think Aaron has confirmed that for us. And as you can see, Ross is apologizing because he knows you have to fire that there.
He said, "I know you guys wanted to see it, but."
I'm not disappointed, Ross. I'm saddened.
Not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Not mad. I'm just disappointed. Kevin, gonna be pretty happy to see the ABT scored and not fired, because he too is a man.
I'm sorry.
And he's going to run at HQ. There's no res, and then Eli on the innermost piece, which Kevin will be happy to break through. And look.
Oh, well, look at that. It was a piece of ice. I think it was
And
Sherlock because he's having to read it and figure out
maybe.
what in the world it does.
That might be a Victor also. I saw blue.
So let me see that again.
It is in fact a Victor.
Oh, it looks like it is a Victor. Okay.
So I don't know. I always have this sort of internal struggle when I'm building a Shaper deck on whether or not to include the dog or the Corroder, because Eli, prime example here, really taxing on Lady, and you start building up a server with just barriers, and all of a sudden the runner can't get in.
Well, I mean, it's fine if you have parasites in your deck. You can use Lady because once you hit Lady to get through on the cheap, then you can parasite it out.
Right.
But if you need to make those repeat runs, then at the end of the day, Shaper is one of the more wealthy runners.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be able to get in there over and over and over again over the course of the game with a Corroder.
Yeah. Sometimes it just comes down to a style choice too. So Ross going to install that Victor over R&D. So maybe not super confident with that outer, or that middle piece of ice, or just didn't feel like he could afford to res it.
Now I am a little, interested here that Ross has left his HQ open. He doesn't have Biotics in hand, so he's going to have to leave an agenda in his hand for at least a turn. He's going to give Kevin an opportunity to get in there, unless he's just that confident in the toll booth and Architect he has over there. Although that's probably a Caprice down there as well, so maybe he's just feeling really confident in his scoring server.
Yeah, I mean, Caprice behind an Architect and a toll booth is pretty strong, period, no matter what server it's on. So, especially seeing Kevin without the Code Gate Breaker out.
Oh, look at that. Ross draws a Fragment. That would have been his archives if he had fired the ABT.
I mean, but he also would have had a Victor resed in front of archives, so.
Details.
And there it is. He's going to install Advance. And that's also going to be really powerful for Ross, being able to get those money cards back into his deck early. I don't know that Kevin can afford to get in there right now on 9 credits. It's doable, certainly, although
the hopelessness of Caprice. Do I really want to waste that money?
Gordian Blade. So yeah, he can get in there, but it's not going to be cheap. Now he does have 9 sitting on Katie, so if he takes that off, I don't think he's too worried about it. But he's got to play the Caprice game, of course.
And that's just the worst. Just the feeling that it's going to be awful, even if you get in there.
Yep. And so to go in more than once, every time you run past Toll Booth again is sort of a losing proposition.
And I don't think Kevin's really a parasite player. He's going to have to deal with that Toll Booth over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does he have a Fem in here?
He does. He does have 2 parasites and 1 Fem. So the self mod could go to any one of those. I think a Fem is probably more what you would expect Kevin to be playing here against a Toll Booth.
Yeah, because he doesn't have the Data Sucker token, so he's not really going to be able to destroy it with the Parasite.
But we'll see what he decides to do.
No, I can't see his hand. Did we say he does have a Stim Hack in that hand?
Not sure. Haven't gotten a great look at it from him. Looks like he's got a Corroder in hand? Or no, that might be the Stim Hack. That might be
he only has 1 in his decks.
Oh yeah, in fact he doesn't run Corroder. That's right, he's running 2 ladies. So yeah, maybe that is a Stim Hack. He
pulls
sees
another Toll
Booth from HQ. So that probably I was seeing Katie is what I was seeing, because that looks anything like a Corroder or a Stim Hack. Whoops. Yeah, that probably takes off the table that Parasite plan, even if you do run into that Toll Booth, because he's got 2. It's not really worth it to wait 10 turns to kill both. So probably has to consider a Fem at some point.
He's Toll Booth again.
For all he knows, Ross has 3 Toll Booths in hand.
This is true. So, he keeps running back at HQ. He hasn't even checked what's in front of that R&D there. And Ross scores out his Fragment.
It is, yeah. It's going to be
puts the pressure on.
He's within 1 now. 1 more agenda will do it for him.
Kevin trying to figure out where he can go from here.
Kevin's got to be feeling pretty pressured right now. He knows R&D is really tough to get into. But really, what other choice does he have but to R&D lock him?
Right, and I feel really bad, right? Because Kevin's had a good day. Kevin's coming into this, securely in one of these top spots, and now he's just been shut out both of these games.
Yeah.
Tries to go in and see if he can get the cheap
face first
install.
into the toll booth. Is he going to keep going? He can't without having taken the money off of Katie. He might go and get his Gordian Blade anyways, but he doesn't.
Now I see the prepaid sitting down there.
Yeah, I think he's just gonna.
So he managed to get up,
Lucky
fairly
find.
decently. It looked fine, yeah.
And Ross gonna start putting hedge funds back in the deck.
Sounds like a good idea. Shores up HQ a little bit more. Now is he digging for an agenda, or is he digging for biotic and agenda? Does he have biotics in this deck? No, Ross is not necessarily a big
I don't think he does.
player.
I think this is just a big Glacier deck. Keeps you out with Ash and Caprice and builds up money with the Breaker Bay Economy Suite.
He's doing that so far.
Yep, doing it quite effectively. Although currently down at two monies. So a little bit of a window here for Kevin to sort of get back in the game if he can find a score.
I mean, and he can make this run at R&D. He can use up one of those lady counters. Seems like a pretty good time to do it, but he may be so fixated in trying to get rid of that Caprice that he's not really taking in the whole board here. I mean, if it was NEH, there's plenty of stuff that Ross can res with those 2 credits, but I don't know that there's a lot in HP that he's going to be able to.
And there it is. He's going to pop for Gordian Blade, that nice looking art from FFG.
Thanks, FFG.
It's one of my favorite Icebreaker arts at this point for full art. I would be ecstatic if we could play another kit so I could win another to fill out my playset. But that's a topic for another time.
Sure, we can make that.
I'm confused as to why it's not in play.
I think he changed his mind.
Changed his mind. Interesting.
I think he's going to get no. Okay.
Changed his changing of mind changing. So
very eloquently put.
I mean, I do my best. So he does drop it down. You think he's just going to run back at Caprice now and try and trash it?
I think he's way too fixated on his Caprice, right? Like, understanding that R&D needs to be hit. Because, I mean, you run HQ over and over.
But on the other hand, now he doesn't have RDI out, which has got to be frustrating for him because behind all that ice, only getting to see one card at a time it's rough.
But you got to hope it's an agenda. The card you're going for is definitely not an agenda. And even if you do, you have no chance of getting it. Right?
Yeah, and if it's agenda and he doesn't run it, then Ross is on game point with an agenda installed on a Caprice server.
I love how we continue to talk about this as if we know that that's what he's going to do.
Right, of course.
The Caprice.
Of course.
Pretty sure he's a little smarter than that. There we go. He's running R&D. That's through. Pops Lady and... Nope. More ice. Looks like a Heimdall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 ice on the board. 9 ice on the board.
And Ross still only on 2 money, so gonna need to find some of that somewhere. We know he's got Jackson's though yet to come, and in fact he has a hedge fund in hand. So,
but he's got to get up to
I think
5.
We can expect him to take money for a turn probably.
And I mean he's not too worried about it. Even if Kevin comes in and steals an agenda, he's still up 5, to 4. He's still on game point.
There it is. Ross takes 3, passes back.
Kevin probably going to run straight back for R&D again. Nice fresh card.
He's got an HQI in hand. Oh, no. I keep seeing Katie and thinking it's every other card but Katie Jones. It's a real struggle of mine using my eyes. I apologize for that.
When they make a version of Netrunner for the deaf, Josh would be a fantastic player.
So yeah, Kevin, I think with a lot of sort of dead cards in hand,
the blind.
unfortunately. I thought it was intentional, which made it even more funny.
Oh, well. Still intentional, then. Not nearly as funny as I seem to be.
Has an Atman, which isn't necessarily going to do him a whole lot of good here unless he wants to install it for that Eli, but he still doesn't know what those other 2 pieces of ice in front of R&D are. I think Ross is content to let him spend the lady counters at this point on Eli.
I mean, Ross knows that he needs the 5 for hedge fund.
Vitruvius.
Now, Ross has 1 fragment here. Do you think he has any other 3-pointers in here? Do we know?
I mean, in this deck list,
he has an Eden.
Wow, really? That surprises me, but I guess it cuts down on your density, which I think is reasonable. If you're running 3 Vitruvius and 3 accelerated, then running a Hades doesn't really do anything for you in terms of cutting down on the density. So I guess it's reasonable to run that second fragment.
Although the problem is once you run any 3-point agenda at all, suddenly any access can be game.
Right. Especially now, Kevin's on 4 points. He could get that dream access on R&D.
That would be Ross's luck.
Ross is finally up to 10 money here, but we know he's got a Heimdall, for instance, so not all of his ice is cheap here.
I'm thinking it over again. I mean, he's asking himself the age-old question, right? Where are the agendas? I mean, you're pretty sure they're not in hand, otherwise Ross would have tried to score them.
I think you have to assume
they're not in the server. They
Ross
have to be in
would have
R&D.
dropped them there. So you have to go for R&D, I think. Oh, and he's got indexing. It's a card we have seen less and less of as time has gone on, but still one that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's solid. I don't know what happened to it. I mean, they just have other options. Chrysium being everywhere kind of shut it down.
Yeah, well, and I think sort of the ability to shuffle things back in or shuffle things in general is I've sort of seen it.
Yeah, let me undo all the stuff that you just did.
Decline, but I think it's still pretty strong.
Apparently, Kevin does as well.
Yeah, and it could do him some good here. It could win him the game, frankly. He sees 1. He sees 2. He sees 2 agendas. So depends on what that ice in front of Ross's R&D is, but.
And I mean, Ross has 10 credits. He can res whatever's there.
Right.
It's just if whatever can keep Kevin out for 2 runs.
Now, it looks like Kevin. Wow. Kevin might be playing the long con. Okay.
Giving him a little time.
I thought he was putting 1 on top and 1 on bottom, and that was going to be one of the most genius plays I've ever seen. He let Ross think that there's only the 1, but no, he's put them both there. And
I wouldn't even let him think there's 1. I'd put him probably 3rd and 5th, let him run, and then let Ross res the ice, because he's going to res on this run.
And Ross wants a look at archives to see, or at Kevin's heap to.
Why couldn't they just call him the same thing? Gonna run back to R&D again?
Yeah, why couldn't they just call them both graveyards?
Whoa.
Boom.
Whoa.
Shots fired.
Sorry, FFG. Sorry, MTG, if you're listening to this. Please don't sue us.
Kevin sitting with 2 parasites in hand, a Levy, another Astrolabe, and maybe still that Katie from earlier. It's not a great hand for him. Oh, Atman. There it is. So Atman at 4. Took its sweet time. But now we know that, for instance, Heimdall is live.
Just leaving it. He had no way to mark this at 4. He's just kind of leaving it.
I think he's debating what he wants to set it at. I mean, there's no question, right? You have to set it at 4. You know what's on top of R&D.
I mean, he has the clone chip. He can get Lady back out.
Yeah, that's true.
Not the most cost efficient, but he could do it. I almost wonder if he had a cheaper program he could have installed just as an excuse to trash the Lady to get it back.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. But I don't know. At this point, we saw his hand. I mean, he had Parasite, right?
Also, still on the board, Deus Ex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. But he's still not decided.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, there it is, 4 strength. Yeah,
that's where that was going.
I can't imagine what the argument was. Maybe 5 for the toll booth and the Sherlock that he may or may not have seen ever. But There it is. There's the Sherlock.
Speak of the devil.
And so Kevin has no way to fight this. You know, Mimic ain't going to cut it without a data sucker.
And you see him pointing at it going,
there it
man.
is. Yeah, so he was thinking about putting it at 5. So, yeah, Ross saying it's going to be okay. It's just going to attack you a lot. So trace 4 on the first subroutine. Now, do you pay this if you're Kevin?
I mean, yeah, you know there's an agenda at the end of this run.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
And he needs the admin to get through Eli, so he can't not do it.
Oh, you could click through it. Oh, I guess you couldn't. This is click 4, right? So steals it.
And now I saw that he put one agenda on the top. Did he put both agendas,
I think he did,
1 and 2?
Which begs the question of why. I know everyone will hate me for saying that yet again.
Yep, there it is.
So, well, I don't know what his plan here was.
And Ross not eager to put it in the scoring server.
I think Ross was just more worried about what came after that, so he wanted to just draw through it.
That's fair, because he knew Kevin knew.
Yeah. And putting unsure. Okay, so he pitches the agenda and a bunch of ice, keeps the Breaker Bay grid and more ice, as well as an Adonis. So he's looking right now just to get his economy back.
So he has what we assume is an Ash or Caprice in that server. And
I think it's a Caprice.
The game-winning agenda.
Yeah, I think he's more worried about Kevin winning the game right now. Kevin has, a Katie out, and 2 prepaids, so technically sort of right on the cusp of having that big money advantage. I think Ross just wants to build up some economy so that he can afford to maybe put another piece of ice on that scoring server and run the Caprice games.
I don't know. I mean, you're giving Kevin at that point more time to build up economy as well. Kevin trying to figure out where to go here. I mean, if you're Kevin, now you have seen all the cards that Ross just drew. You do know them were agendas. So you know the density in the bottom here is at least, pretty good. You know he didn't just draw a ton of them in his hand. You don't have to worry about running HQ.
That being said, you don't have a lot of tools in your hand with an Astrolabe and 2 Parasites. Now, I think he's got to drop a Parasite here at some point.
I mean,
otherwise it feels like a waste to have it in his hand and in his deck.
You can drop honestly. A Parasite on Sherlock, so the next turn you can actually burn through it with that 4-string
drop one on Sherlock, one on Tollbooth, and say, your turn, Ross.
Right.
Respond. And if Ross doesn't respond, eventually those get big enough where that ice is gone, or Ross has to start wiping virus counters.
I mean, it'll only work for 1 turn on Sherlock, but that's the 1 turn you need, because, we know he has another indexing hand. We know if he can get that Sherlock to where he can break it, he can possibly win the game.
Yeah. Instead, he's going to levy. Very interesting. Content to just reset. I think we see a lady in hand, ironically. A lady, a self-mod. Yet another Parasite.
And sitting with 2 credits. Also, drew the other 3-pointer.
He's a Caprice and an Interns. Now he can afford to pitch that 3-pointer to Jackson.
What did he just put in there?
I'm not sure.
Oh, and it looked like he put a Caprice. So maybe that wasn't a Caprice. It was down there.
He
it may have been an
Caprice. No, well, he has a Caprice in hand.
Well, I think. Oh, did he still have it after that?
Yeah, he still had it after that. So I'm
not
not sure, but I also didn't think I saw an Ash. Hard to say. Ross getting some shout-outs, some consternation. Not sure which, about his sleeves, which are pretty dope, pretty awesome. They're purple, that's HP's color.
I do, by the way, appreciate that both times Ross has been playing, he's been on the left side of the screen, so that Palpatine is facing toward the bottom, so you can actually see him. It was nice.
I mean, I would say it wasn't intentional, but I mean, guys, we're PeachHack. Isn't everything we do well choreographed and planned?
Totally planned it. Although now that we've noticed it, we're going to make Ross play on the left side for the rest of the day. If he makes the cut.
I mean, at this point,
game.
yeah, he's winning, right?
All right, so we got a little bit of update on
a couple
other
of
games.
updates here. So Zach won both. So he is our de facto #1 seed going into the cut.
Firm #1.
And Chris Yang here going to be hovering still at 16. So potential for people to jump over him.
I mean, he was #2 going in though, and you're losing to Zach. I imagine he's still going to make this cut, and if he doesn't, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Now Eric Yaw from last round, who got swept by Zach, won his first game against Josh Singleton. So not a great start for Josh Singleton, who needed some help to sort of break into that bubble. So he's probably out. Eric Yaw, somebody else who's going to need help to get into the top 8, potentially, making a case for himself. And Ahmed won both. So Ahmed is going to be sitting on 17 prestige, probably in the top 8 as a result. So, could, depending on what happens with Pacer's game. Oh, no, never mind. They were playing. The two of them were playing. So Ahmed beats Pacer in both. And that's going to be
huge. Got a little bit of retribution.
Because, the rivalry there is strong.
Going to rub that in Pacer's face for the next month.
So Ahmed probably makes the top 8, almost guaranteed here. And that's pretty big for him. But let's jump back into this. We'll get more as we hear of them. Ross still sitting on 10 credits. Not ideal, but he did res that Adonis off of Breaker Bay grid. And there's the Ash and the ABT.
Kevin needing to read Breaker Bay.
So what's Ross doing? He's keeping both of those. Seems strong. And then 3 pieces of ice. And ditching everything else. I think he's going to get ready and score this.
It's about that time. I mean, he's given Kevin all the time in the world. He's got his board a little more prepared.
Yep. And unfortunately, we saw after the levy, Kevin's hand still was not ideal, but he's got a lucky find. He's got money now, so he can get in to that scoring remote. So Ross probably has to consider maybe dropping that second toll booth out in front. That's pretty expensive for Kevin to get into more than once, as we know he will have to.
I mean, Ross can't really afford to put down another toll booth here. I mean, he's sitting at 10 credits.
Of course.
I don't know, between that and then Resing Caprice, he's going to be down on 0.
All he needs is 3 money at the start of a turn.
Oh, yeah, he does get his Adonis money, you're right.
And he wins the game, right? So if he can get to the point where he can afford to res the toll booths and threaten the game score, then Kevin's got to be pretty concerned about it.
Kevin back up to a very respectable amount as well. And Ross with an upgrade on R&D.
So also of note, just heard
Adonis. There we go. Hang on.
Yeah, there it is.
Ross going for it here.
Yeah, so he's going for it. He installs, and with Breaker Bay there, Caprice and Ash are both free.
Yep.
So that's going to be pretty relevant here.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
Now, real quick before Kevin gets going, Hollis, Echo, 1. So that's a corp split for him. John Hartman, runner split for him. So they're both probably in top 8, I think. I think that's confirmed, yeah. So John Hartman's on 18 prestige. He's in. Hollis should be in, barring anything crazy. I think that rounds it out for us just about. This game will certainly decide.
And I mean, not a lot of surprises here. There are a lot of people that want to bash Netrunner from time to time on, it's random accesses here and there, and it's whatever pulls out of the hand. But we keep seeing the same players rise to the top over and over and over and over and over. It just speaks to how well the game is designed and how much player skill is rewarded.
Yeah, and despite all these, we had pretty rapid fire release of Valley and Breaker Bay, and these guys are still able to adapt and bring their A game in top 8 over and over again. So it's really impressive. Kevin hoping to do the same, really having to sit here and decide what he's going to do.
Get lucky on a Caprice.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? So he installs Fem on the toll booth, and that's going to be relevant, super relevant. He's not losing 3 every time he runs at it.
I mean, to be fair, he's only got 2 more runs he's going to be able to make on this.
Right.
And they're going to cost him somewhere around, 3 to pump the Gordian Blade and 3 more, so 6 each time. So he's saving himself 3 credits doing it. Well, 2 credits doing it, sorry, because he has to pay for the Fem.
Now, as Caprice rezzed, they side game.
Just know I'm rooting for you, Kevin. I'm not rooting against you, Ross, but... Ross going to bid 1 here.
Kevin bids none.
I should be playing this side game. He's going to go back in, click 4, and hope again.
And hope to make it. So what do you bid yours, Ross?
Ross going to bid 0 here. Nope, 2.
Bids 2.
And I did it, yep.
Yep. So that's it. So Ross takes both, which puts him easily in the top 8. In fact, that might even make Ross our second seed going into the top 8. It's going to depend on him and John Hartman's strength of schedule. Hartman with a super bye going into it. I think Ross as well. So gonna have to see how that works out.